Hey, I'm Allie Zendrian, editor-in-chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that might not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host, and even more importantly, my trusted personal financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, how's everything going?
Things are going well, Allie. We had a really fun conversation. I feel like we could have just pressed record about 30 minutes ago and had a solid podcast. But now we're just going to just keep the fun conversation rolling and have an awesome recorded conversation now.
I guess it's too bad that with Riverside it doesn't just record all of it and keep it for secret, because you're right, it would have been a stellar podcast, but nobody else was here for it.
Right. I had fun, so.
Good. I'm glad. Well, so our actual first piece of news this week is from AdvizorPro. Its latest financial advisor moves for the month of July showed that 1,833 professionals moved in the month. This was down 43% from May. They had both a list of the top firms that were hiring and the top firms that were losing advisors. So in the most hired category was LPL with 890, then Cambridge Investment Research with 198, Zayek with 75, Morgan Stanley with 72, and JP Morgan at 48. Then on the departure side, Aderit and Co. had the highest departures with 474. Then Next Financial Group at 296, Mosaic right in the middle again at 225, PL at 127, and Merrill Lynch was at 81. As you can see, there were two firms that were on both lists. I'm kind of curious what you think of all this data, and then be in the ones that made both lists.
Yeah, which I guess too, we are looking at month-to-month data, so it would also be interesting to revisit this in a few months too, to see if there's any general trends or even year-to-year as well. So again, we are totally acknowledging that this is month over month. But yeah, I found it interesting. So LPL still did have a pretty positive net inflow of advisors. But Osaic ended up having a net outflow this month. But as far as any thoughts that I have from the list, looking at it, it looks like it's all hybrid firms where there still is a broker-dealer component in addition to RIA. So it'd be interesting to compare that data on the RIA side, or where some people were leaving. Where did a lot of them go? Did some of them go from the wirehouses, from the hybrid broker-dealers to more of either a corporate RIA structure? Did they launch their own RIA? Because again, I think that there's going to be a time and a place, and these companies are massive, and many of them have been around for quite some time. But it does just seem, albeit very slowly, a transition more into the RIA side of the business, even for these big companies. A lot of these big companies still are typically pushing more of the managed money side compared to the typical buying, selling stocks for commission, and buying and selling A shares, for example, for commission. So I do think there's a bigger shift to RIA. So yeah, it would be interesting to see where are they going. Are they leaving the industry? Are they going to RIAs, or what does that look like? But was there anything besides, of course, two companies being on both the inflow and outflow? So sorry if that was your one takeaway, but if you have other takeaways, anything else that really jumped out to you?
Well, as far as the inflow and outflow, so when I first saw this data, part of me thought it's quite interesting that you're on both sides of the list. And then does that mean, so having previously worked for, granted in healthcare, but a very large company, is it just understanding that yeah, you know what, we hire 8,000, we lose 800. That's just what happens. It's the name of the game, and it's how large we are. That is what it is. And so it could be some of that. It could then also just be a culture issue, or there's something else that's going on. So curious about that. But this list also made me think, so obviously I'm not a financial advisor. Thankfully you are. But if I were, and I were thinking about some kind of move, I think I'd want to check these kind of stats to see. Because like you said, if Osaic is net negative, and granted, this is a blip, so maybe it was just a blip. Maybe this is a trend. But if it's a trend, do I really want to jump on the sinking ship, or do I want to be on the one that's hiring everybody and treating everybody well? But those were my thoughts.
That's a really good point about if an advisor is looking to make a switch, looking at this data again, especially zooming out a bit to your point, looking at the trends. I think that absolutely should at least be a consideration on, whoa, it's interesting. This one firm, again, we'll assume it's longer term trend, seems to be having a lot more people leaving than are joining. I should probably do some diligence and at least ask some questions. Because again, there could be a very good explanation. It could be, hey, there was this one advisor who had this massive team and he happened to leave and it really screwed up all the numbers. There you go. Well, there's at least an answer. Or Is it a culture issue that you're bringing up? Is it a payout issue? Is it something in the news compliance wise? Could be any number of things. But I think at least knowing this, especially if you're looking to make a switch, would be really insightful.
And you would know better than I would, but it seems like among the things, so obviously it's doing your own due diligence, but I feel like it's trying to ask any friends who might be at the firm or whatnot, their experience. And obviously that's one part of things, and you trust that person and that experience is worth something. But having this hardcore data that isn't just somebody's own bias and whatnot, but is showing you one way or the other, I think that it's worthwhile data to look at anyway.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
I love when we agree. It's so nice.
Which I feel is pretty typical, if we're going to be honest. I feel like there's been very few things that we've really not agreed on the podcast. We just have, we might bring different perspectives and takes to the table, but ultimately I feel it's mostly in alignment.
But see, now this feels like a challenge. So knowing your love of frameworks or something, I have to find something that's, Brandon is really going to hate this, and I'm going to be on the same side that hates it. Just you wait, I will figure it out.
All right, that's the new challenge.
I guess. It's up there with stumping you, which I only did once. So
I don't know about that, but that's going to happen for sure more. Confident in that.
We'll see. Anyway, our second piece of news this week is from Horsesmouth, which had its annual Advisor AI usage survey. This found that daily AI usage has doubled in the past year. Advisors are saying that it's helped them to be faster, more efficient, and better communicators. Obviously, that's all helpful. That aside, though, 1 in 5 advisors aren't using AI, according to this research, and only 11% of advisors call themselves confident users. Among the primary ways that advisors are using AI is to draft client communications. 43% are using them to do that. I just spewed out a lot of numbers at you. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a few things that jumped out was the 1 in 5 not even using AI whatsoever. And we were talking a little bit pre-show, but I think maybe at least my speculation there is I know of at least one firm, but likely some others, that their advisors aren't really allowed to use AI right now, which is, again, we're in 2025, which is even crazy to be thinking about, but that is a reality for some advisors. So that could be the 1 out of the 5 that it's not that they're against it. They're just literally don't have access to it in their day-to-day working, or they're not allowed to and use it a little bit and don't want their compliance to know. So they say that they don't use it. Unlikely, depends on the sample size. But what was even more interesting than that was only 11% said that they were confident, which I feel like even the words that they used are like, I feel like if it was 11% didn't feel like they were an expert, be like, okay, maybe that makes sense. I don't know if I would call myself an AI expert, even though I use it a lot, but confident, I'm definitely confident in the way that I use AI. And a lot of my other friends who are certified financial planners as well use it a lot in their practice. And we're bouncing ideas constantly. And if I had to put words in their mouth, they're not here, but they're confident in AI too, with the way that they're using it. Like we're all learning from each other. So I found that one really, really interesting. I mean, what's your take? Even how would you, like, if you were to be asked, Allie, are you confident with AI, your AI usage? How would you answer that?
So that's the thing. So transparently, I've been using AI for about 2 weeks now. So I'm closer to the 1 in 5 than anything else. So when you said the word confidence, like this is mincing words, but so would I say that I'm confident? I understand the way that I'm using it, and I think that it works with my business case, and I think that in that way it's best for my clients and for my own workflow. So does that equal confidence? I think you could argue, and again, this is like mincing hairs, but is that confidence? It could be, or it could just be like, yeah, you know what? I'm not an idiot about it. I can use it, but is that confidence? I don't know. So it could be mincing words. Confidence is a little loaded. I don't know.
Yeah. It would have been interesting if there was like a slider scale, like on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most confident one. And again, maybe the study actually did ask that. Like, then was it only pulling out people who said 5 on that? Again, I don't know all the methodology that they use there. But again, I just found for at least 4 out of 5 are using AI. So 80% using AI, but only 11 being confident. I don't know. So that's definitely what jumped out. And again, other than what I already shared, I don't really have much more speculation.
All right. That's fair. I don't want to make you speculate more than you feel comfortable. But I will add that Horsesmouth, so this is a company that provides educational resources for financial advisors. For any of those people who might be in the not confident or the 1 in 5ers, for instance, they have a 4-week program called the AI-Powered Financial Advisor. So that helps increase AI adoption and confidence. Maybe that's worth a try. It's always good when somebody offers a solution to the problem.
Clearly there's a disconnect somewhere. So again, I would encourage anyone out there, whether you're an advisor or not, at least start to dabble a little bit in AI. Because again, I think once you start doing it, you're gonna find ways to use it for your own business, your own life. And there's not one right way to do it. Some people use it for every single thing, and that's great. Others use it only for a select few things. So again, just like many things, back, you just mentioned frameworks, high level framework, there's not a perfect solution. You always have to do that. No, that's not the case. But I would encourage, if someone is in that 1 of 5 that hasn't really used it at all, at least, again, assuming it's compliant, use it at least a little.
But anyway, so our third piece of news is also about AI. Mercury's The New Economics of Startups report found that 89% of respondents are primarily concerned with the uncertain economy. Despite that, 87% said that they were confident in their company's own financial prospects. Interestingly, 79% of AI-forward firms are hiring more because of AI. The AI-comfortable companies are 2 times more likely to ask for higher funding in any kind of Series A, Series B, things like that. And they're 3 times more apt to scale their teams. Personally, I was curious. I felt like that was sort of a disconnect. I feel like we keep saying, well, AI will replace financial advisors. They'll replace PR writers. So it was interesting to see that it may be the exact opposite.
Yeah. I mean, that 79% number, more willing to be hiring, did jump out. And before, I've got a couple ideas, but I'd love to toss it back. What are your thoughts? Why do you think there's a disconnect there?
I was trying to think about my own business and to say, yes, I am dabbling more in AI, but then am I willing to hire more? I think I am, but I think it's independent of the AI usage. I think it's just, I so happen to thankfully be getting a little more work coming my way. So I could understand maybe that it's leading to more work. Maybe that really is the answer, is that because you're that much more efficient, you're able to take on that many more people. And then because of it, AI isn't the catch-all to everything. AI is not going to go pitch a reporter and follow up and whatnot. So I do need a body to do that. Heretofore, I have to hire somebody.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, just basically more efficient means maybe you can serve more clients in general, and then you might need bodies to then serve those clients. Right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's not what I had written down, but I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think kind of along the same lines, at least what came to mind whenever I saw this was maybe it's automating some of the, we'll call it lower level or lower value tasks. Like even think of, I mean, this is barely even AI, but stuff like Calendly. Think about how we used to schedule exclusively before. It would be a phone call. Hey, Allie, when can we meet next? Or I've got these dates available, or we're playing phone tag back and forth, or we're playing email tag where, oh, does this time work for you? No, it doesn't. What about this one? No, that one. And then we keep going back and forth. And again, that one's not even AI, but think about how much time things like Calendly for like $10-ish per month have saved. And now that frees up, say that person who was scheduling, that was one of their tasks. Does that mean they've been just forgotten about? No. I mean, they're still probably going to own that workflow, if you will, make sure the Calendly links get sent out appropriately, make sure people do end up scheduling, but now they're freed up to focus on higher value tasks. I feel like I'm a broken record on this podcast talking about even my use for AI of how do I automate those types of things so that I can spend more time in client facing capacities, which I believe are higher value tasks. So I think that's a big part of it. And maybe because people are confident with their use of AI, I mean, to your point earlier, you're growing and they're more confident in their growth. And if someone's more confident in their growth, all things held equal, probably not as afraid to hire someone. Now, if you're like, I have no idea where my next client's coming from, where more revenue is coming from, you're probably less likely to hire. So maybe it's a twofer. Maybe it's not directly with AI. Maybe there's a confidence piece in there too. So again, we're all speculating here, but I feel like, you brought up some good points, and I think we're getting at least some idea as to why that might be the case. But again, really cool, because most people are like, oh, AI is taking all the jobs. And I'm like, right. This one says they're hiring more, not even neutral. They're hiring more. 79%. Right.
I mean, that story needs to blow up in and of itself, because I feel like anytime that there's a survey that, AI is going to take these 5 jobs, so-and-so gets interviewed. And I hope on the other side of things that gets featured. But so actually, you brought up an interesting point with Calendly. That made me think, so I personally, and I use it now, but I was probably one of those deniers for the longest time because it just felt like it's rude and it's so impersonal. But so then is that the same thing with AI, that it's just these deniers of, obviously in that case, it's not rudeness, but there's something about it that just feels like, well, that's just changing my whole workflow. That doesn't feel like it's authentic. Whatever it is, that people are just continually making those excuses until you see and experience Calendly, or AI in this case, and then say, I was an idiot, I should have done this sooner.
Yeah. No, that's a good point too, because I'm all about the authenticity and human connections. And at least in my world, I'm not trying to use AI for that. Like even if I am going to say have AI proofread a piece of content, or even proofread an email to make sure it's hitting the points, it's been my IP, the information, the knowledge that I've given it, and then it's more of a proofreader, and it still ultimately comes in this case from me. So it's still me that's making the final tweak. So even though it's probably cleaned it up a little bit, although I think I've talked about before, I think AI has made me a better writer in general. It's like having a great proofreader. Yeah. It still ends up being personal. Now, again, I think if with the use case of, say you sent me an email and I just copied and pasted and gave it like a few words of a prompt and said, hey, respond to my client, Allie, make sure it includes this. And then I send it to you, you're going to be like, dude, you didn't write that. I can tell. Like that was clearly AI. And then it's going to feel impersonal. And then there's a potential of breaking trust. But that's not an AI problem. That would be how someone is using the tool.
Right.
In a bad way, which again is a fair concern, but as long as you don't just copy paste stuff, which is again, I would call the elementary version of AI, as long as you are just a bit more intentional, it can still absolutely be authentic. And now you can just, now I could maybe send more emails or get that communicated to you in a faster way, still authentic, but more efficient. And then now we all benefit from that tip.
Yes. Agreed. So loved all of that, but also then apparently we should say if there's a crappy email that comes from Brandon, you know that it really came from, no, he would never write a crappy email.
At least try not to. Well, if it's a crappy email, it's crappy because it's me, not because of AI.
No, you would never. But anyway, so our last bit of news this week, I thought that this one was particularly interesting. So Kartoon Studios will be launching Bitcoin Brigade, Advisors in Satoshi City in the fall of next year. This programming involves a digital realm with original K-pop music to help kids understand decentralized finance. So the chairman and CEO of Kartoon Studios produced and created the animated series for both Super Mario Brothers and Sonic the Hedgehog. So one would presume, obviously, those stuck really well for those of us millennials, whether you are on the geriatric side or not. So I was curious what you thought of this and how you feel like this kind of way of getting DeFi and Bitcoin and whatnot into kids is good or not good.
Yeah, well, this was another one too that I'd love to get your take first, since you have a couple of kids. I mean, is this something from reading through the article? I guess I didn't see a particular age that they said, hey, here's the age range that this would be good for. So I'm not 100% sure about that. But what about you? Like, would you show this to your kids? And we'll assume whatever age they say it's for, your kids are that age.
So actually, I had bought the kids a few years ago a book about Bitcoin that was targeted to their age level. So, I mean, we're talking now like toddlers. But so in using it, I don't think that I had enough framework in there to really like support what I was reading. So you're reading it and it's words, and obviously the words are getting absorbed. But then to be able to dialogue and say like, oh, well, wasn't it interesting that, I don't recall the story, but, Bitcoin Bear did blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't have a retort to say, oh, yeah, of course he did that because he, whatever. I've since, and so I've mentioned on the podcast, I'm now doing the SheFi season 14. So I am getting more DeFi knowledge. So I think I could do a little bit better now. But I think on the one level, it's great to have that kind of experience and obviously to have more educational kind of content out there versus just the fluffy, it's entertaining, but it's not really serving any kind of purpose apart from that. But I think that this might need that additional adult education. So if a kid then is coming up to an adult and saying, I don't know who the characters are, so I'm going to make them up, but XYZ character was trading ETH for Bitcoin and this crazy wacky thing happened and then the whole story ensued. If the parent's like,
what do you just say?
Then is that going to further it, or maybe it doesn't matter? I don't know.
That's a good, again, since my wife and I don't yet have kids, I wanted to get your take on that. And that makes a lot of sense to me, though. Again, even as a non-parent, so by no stretch am I claiming to be an expert. It would be interesting with what kind of, we'll call it parental education almost needs to be there, or is that something that you might watch with your kids at the same time, where maybe there's something that was shared and one of your kids asks you a question and maybe you're not 100% sure, but you at least were there watching the same thing, versus if they just kind of come out of left field with, right, this character traded the ETH for Bitcoin and whatnot. The parent might be like, what is going on? What are you watching? This sounds probably educational, but I don't even know what you're talking about. So I think it would be interesting to see how they pair that. Maybe this sounds like something that guides could even be used, whether that's coming straight from Kartoon Studios, or I'm sure other influencers or creators even could come up with their own spin on different guides to help parents along that journey too. So that's a point that didn't really come across my mind because I'm not a parent, but the second you mentioned, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. The parent's going to need some level of understanding, I think, too. So yeah, it's a good point.
Unless that is and again, depending on the age group of this. So if this is the tweeners, teens kind of thing, that you're not talking to your parents, this is basically just the cool thing that everybody's talking about at school. Sure. Arguably, your parents don't need to know anything. So maybe it doesn't matter. But yeah, I'd be curious about that. But I'm glad that they're doing this. So I think at the very least, it seems like DeFi is here to stay and that this isn't some fly-by-night kind of situation. But even if it were, I think being able to have that education and understand this concept would be really important for kids. I mean, obviously it is hard. Like me needing to take a whole session of classes about it, I think shows it can be difficult. So I'm glad that they're getting it at this kind of age, and whether it becomes that thing. I mean, we both went to school growing up. For me, unfortunately, it's historical facts. They are all just out of my brain. Ask me anything, I have no idea. But is it that, or does it become that thing that then fuels, whether it's your job or just your own personal money situation? Either could be good.
I think too, we're starting to see more, even just with a lot of content that's out there, not necessarily show wise, but this more, I've heard it framed as infotainment, where it's how do you share something that can potentially be boring, like even finance in general. A lot of people find that quite boring. Me not being one of them, I find it incredibly exciting and riveting, truly. But I know people don't. So even when I'm thinking about creating content, and I'm not even thinking about creating content for kids, obviously, but even so, even when I'm creating it for adults, I'm trying to think, how can I make this as engaging and as the least amount of boring as possible? Because some things are just like your vegetables, right? You just sometimes have to eat them. But if you can make it a little bit more engaging, and especially when you're trying to engage the younger audience, you know, like kids in this case. So I think overall, my high level is, I think it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, you're right. Whether you have broccoli by itself or you have broccoli basically doused in so much cheese that you forget that it's broccoli, I guess arguably you ate your broccoli.
Although, yeah, I didn't eat many vegetables growing up as a kid. I've since started to like them a little bit more. This is a quick side tangent. But I will say, when broccoli's done well, like when it's like on a grill or a skillet, it has a little bit of a burnt to it, maybe probably some butter. So that's maybe not as healthy, but that's okay. Have some butter on it, maybe some garlic. I've actually ordered side by myself. No one forced me to eat it. And I do enjoy broccoli that way. So that would be called the infotainment with broccoli. Grill it, skillet, garlic, and some butter will make it way better. And that's someone who, growing up, I absolutely hated vegetables, like legitimately classic doesn't like vegetables. And I still, as you know, don't like salad, or lettuce. But yeah, so I even like vegetables when prepared in certain ways. So very infotainment and veggies.
Yes, I know about the salad and I knew about the lettuce on burgers. I didn't know globally about vegetables, but very interesting.
Yeah, it's gotten better now. Like I definitely eat more vegetables now. But growing up, avoided them like the plague.
That's okay. You know what? Whether it's Bitcoin or vegetables, at least everybody's learning.
Make it a little bit more entertaining. Everyone wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, as always, for going along on these tangents and talking about your vegetable usage or not usage. I appreciate it.
Yeah, something I wasn't expecting to share today, but now we're here. This is a fun conversation, as always. More awesome news this week, and I always enjoy talking about what you find. You find really good stuff, so happy to be here.
Aw, thanks. I appreciate that.